All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our class on working with buyers here at Elite Ocean View Realty. Guys, I am happy to have you here. We have an excellent class. We're going to go over all the procedures that we take when we're working with buyers, from searching for properties on the MLS to getting your buyers pre-approved, and signing the buyer broker agreement, and also placing an offer, going over the different contracts and the different steps to when you're working with a buyer. All right, guys, if you have any questions, as I mentioned before, let me know. We're here to help. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Of course, when you're working with a buyer, whether the buyer is a random lead that was given to you, or this is a friend or someone that you know, we need to make sure that our buyer is pre-approved and qualified to purchase a home. We cannot just go out shopping for a property without knowing how much they can afford. So only a financial institution like a bank or a mortgage broker or mortgage agency will be able to do that. All right. So the first thing I want to do with you guys is share with you via chat. And if you look in your chat, is our own lender, Elisa Leone. And you guys want to save her business card for future reference whenever you have a buyer and you need to get them pre-approved. You can always contact Elisa. Elisa would be happy to work with you and work with your buyer. Of course, if your buyer already has a loan officer, a mortgage broker, or even a bank, and they already have a pre-approval letter, then great. Then we can just move forward with the process of shopping for a home. Usually, a pre-approval will be given to your buyer, and it'll be valid for about 90 days. So you have 90 days to find a property, send the property over to the lenders, and finish the deal. All right. If of course you have not found the property within 90 days, then your buyer is going to have to go through the process again of getting pre-approved again, because things change with people's credit. All right. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to get our buyer signed to a buyer broker agreement. Now, you're not going to get them signed to a buyer broker agreement if you're just going to send them properties from the MLS. I am logged into the MLS, of course, guys, and you guys can send properties to your buyers through the MLS. But when you go see a property for the first time, you want to make sure that you already have met with your buyer and you have explained to them that we need them to sign a buyer broker agreement. So where do we find the buyer broker agreement? Of course, inside of Form Simplicity. And if you don't know, Form Simplicity is one of your services here in your Miami resource panel. And I have it right here as one of my favorites is Form Simplicity. So when you click on it, it's going to launch the program itself, Form Simplicity. All right. So where do you find the buyer broker agreement? It's inside of the blank forms. It's also inside of our buyer's package. So you can find it in the buyer's package, and you can also find it inside of the blank forms. So let me just click on blank forms, and I'm actually going to just pull up the buyer broker agreement that's in the blank forms. You have it inside of the forms package, guys. So you can always click on forms packages and you will open up the buyer package and you'll see it right there. It's the exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. Okay, so it's the very first one inside of your buyer's package. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to show you how to search for that buyer broker agreement inside of the forms library. So we're going to click on blank forms again, and instead of going to the forms package, we're going to go directly through the forms library. And I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to type in the word buyer. All right, we're going to type in the word buyer. We're going to hit search, and we are going to find now the exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. All right, so it's this one right here, exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. We are not single agencies, all right, and we're definitely not no brokerage. So we're going to do the exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. We're going to open it up. All right. Now, guys, it is the law, right? I mean, this law was passed last year in August of 2024. And by the law, right, we must have a buyer broker agreement signed with our buyer in order to begin showing properties. Okay. Whether other agents do it or not, that's really up to them as an office. we at Elite Ocean View Realty would like for you to have a buyer broker agreement already in place before you start showing properties. All right. So we're going to come here and the consumer. So you're just going to basically put in the name of your buyer. If it's multiple buyers, then you're going to go ahead and place in the second name of the other buyer. And then when it comes to broker, it's Elite Ocean View Realty and then your name. So I always put my name first. And then I put in Elite Ocean View Realty. We are the brokerage that represents the buyer. Now think of how long it's going to take you to work with your buyer. You can lock them in for about 6 months or you can lock them in for a year. It all depends. Of course, everything is negotiable. So this agreement begins today, right? On the 20, what's today? Today is the 21st. On the 21st day of August. And we're just going to take it for 6 months. So we're going to take it until February of next year. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take it over here to the 20th of February. Okay. So we have a 6 month agreement in place. For number three, type of property. What type of property is your buyer interested in buying? We're always gonna put in residential property. Don't put in single family home, don't put in condo, don't put in townhouse. All right. Just put in residential property. You never know if you're going to buy a townhouse or a condo or a single family home. You can also write single family home, comma, condo, comma, townhome. You can do that as well. Okay. And location. Now, if you know for a fact your client is looking in Miami-Dade County, then just write in Miami-Dade County. I tend to say, all right, I know my client is open to looking at properties in Miami-Dade or Broward County, so I would write in here for location, Miami-Dade and Broward County. One step further, if your client's also open to Palm Beach, then of course you're going to write in Miami-Dade, comma, Broward County, comma, and Palm Beach County. All right. Don't limit yourself to just one singular location on your buyer broker agreement. Make sure that this is covered throughout your coverage area. All right. Number four talks about the broker's obligation. That would be your obligation to your buyer. And number five talks about your consumer's obligation. That would be your client's obligation to you. Right? Number six is a retainer fee. Now, it is really up to you whether you will charge a retainer fee. This retainer fee is to be paid up front and it is non-refundable. All right. So if this is a buyer that you know and that you trust, and the buyer's not really going to leave you, and you don't want to charge a retainer fee, you're going to put in here zero. If this is a lead, someone you really don't know, and you think that you should be charging a retainer fee, go ahead and charge a $1,000 retainer fee. That's going to be paid to you up front and it is non-refundable. It's pretty much for all of the work that you're going to be doing up until you find them a property and you close on the transaction. All right, so it's really up to you whether you guys are going to go with a retainer fee or not. Okay. Any questions on retainer fees? Because some people are scared of adding a retainer fee. Um, they're gonna get turned away. You can always try, right? You can always try. You can always try and sneak in here a $1,000 retainer fee. If the buyer pushes back and says, "Why are you charging me a retainer fee?" then you may want to explain, hey, listen, we're going to be doing a lot of work, we're going to be doing a lot of driving, going to different places, and it's not a guarantee that we are going to find you a property and we're going to close on a property. So we don't work for free, and this is what my retainer fee would be. It's similar to hiring an attorney, right? Hiring an attorney, you're going to pay a retainer fee. Same thing with a buyer broker agreement. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and zero it out because Michael Jordan is my, let's say, best friend, and I know he's not gonna leave me, so I'm gonna go ahead with zero on the retainer fee. Now, when it comes to compensation, if you look inside number seven, compensation, this is what you, as the buyer broker, intends to make on this transaction, on any transaction that you work with your buyer. So if you look at the exclusive buyer broker agreement inside of our package, we have already built in here a 4% compensation. That is a bit of that's a bit aggressive, right? But we do it for a purpose. Now, the compensation is always negotiable and can be changed at any time. Now, remember, in most cases, when you're bringing a buyer over to a seller, you're going to find that sellers are compensating buyer brokers. So if you put here 4%, right? If you put here 4%, and the buyer broker is compensating the seller broker, not the seller broker, sorry. The seller is compensating the buyer broker a percentage. Let's say they're compensating you 2.5%. Then by putting 4% here, that means your buyer will need to pay you 1.5% at closing. So you can get the total of 4%. If you put here 3% and the seller is compensating the buyer broker 2.5%, then your buyer will have to pay you half a percentage point at closing. Of course, if you put 3% here and the seller is compensating the buyer broker 3%, then your buyer does not have to pay you anything. And then the last one, of course, if you present your buyer a property where the seller's not paying compensation because it is not, they're not obligated to pay you compensation, it's totally optional, then your buyer would have to be the one paying you 3%. We need to explain this to our buyers. We need to let them know, hey, I am not asking you for 3%. I'm only saying that I tend to make 3% in this transaction because we, of course, don't work for free. But in most cases, we're going to try and get most of the compensation, if not all of the compensation, from the seller. Okay. So I want to go ahead and leave this at 3%. We want to make 3%, whether it all comes from the seller or a percentage of this 3% comes from the seller. All right, so 3% of the purchase price is how much we want to make. And if there's any additional fees, you want to go ahead and put it in here. Any additional fees. There's a protection period if you leave it blank of 30 days. There is a conditional termination. You can charge a cancellation fee. All right. So basically, if you go with $0 in a retainer fee, you may want to charge a cancellation fee because if the buyer says, hey, listen, I don't want to work with you no more. And you went out and you saw 12 properties with your buyer and you drove who knows how many miles and you spent how much time looking at these properties. And now all of a sudden they want to cancel this agreement. Maybe you want to charge them a cancellation fee. It's really up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and zero that out. No cancellation fee. Like I said, my buyer for today's class is my friend. All right, so we'll just leave it at zero. All right, guys. So all the way down here, you're gonna have your buyer's signature, your right, name, signature, and their address and their information. And then you are the authorized associate or broker. You're gonna sign it and date it. This is the buyer broker agreement. Guys, keep this agreement in hand. You are gonna have to send it over to the title company once you are under contract. Remember, the title company needs to see who's paying your commission. And if the seller is paying 2% compensation, then the title company wants to take 1% from the buyer. So they need to see a copy of this buyer broker agreement. So keep it in hand. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out. We don't need to discuss that buyer broker agreement anymore. We now have the green light to go search for properties. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up the MLS real quick here and let's go look at a property, any property. All right. So I'm going to find myself a property right here and let's go ahead and place an offer on this property. All right, let's place an offer on this property. So here we found the property. Our buyer really likes it. Of course, before you place an offer, you guys all know how to schedule a showing, but this here is showing assist. You can always call the listing agent by going to the phone number here, calling the listing agent and scheduling a showing. Go see the property. You can always schedule online as well. So now that you have seen the property and your buyer says, hey, Robert, you know, I'd like to place an offer. And their buyer is approved for, let's say, $600,000. So this fits, right? You're going to come here and you're going to go straight to Form Simplicity. Form Simplicity is this logo that you see here inside of every listing. You'll see it inside of the MLS attached to every listing. We're going to go ahead and click on Form Simplicity. That's going to go ahead and load up Form Simplicity where you can create a transaction. All right. For some of you that joined us late, I did attach the business card to our loan officer, Elisa, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this again right now. In the event that you guys do not have her contact information, if you need information for Elisa because you're working with a buyer and you need the buyer to get pre-approved, you can always go through our loan officer, check your chats. I just sent you the business card now. Of course, if your buyer already has a loan officer, or if your buyer doesn't need a loan officer because they're going cash, then you don't need it, right? So now we're inside of Form Simplicity. This is pretty simple. It's gonna go ahead and auto-populate all the information right here. You're gonna need to put in the seller's name. How do we find the seller's name? It's quite simple. We're gonna go back to the MLS and we're gonna go ahead and click on IMAP, right? We're gonna go ahead and click on IMAP. And IMAP is a public records, and as you can see right here, we have an owner's name. So we're gonna go ahead and put in the owner's name. All right, we put in the owner's name, that's the seller's name. Next, you're gonna see here the listing agent name, then you're gonna have the purchase price. So this listing is at $599,000. And, for quick reference, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to run a quick CMA on this property. We're going to go here to IMAP, right? Remember, we clicked on IMAP from the MLS, right? We clicked on IMAP. That opened up here. IMAP is going to go ahead and give you an estimated value. The estimated value is currently $522,000. I am going to run a quick comp analysis by clicking on Find Comparables here on the right. All right. And then based on my criteria of 20% lot difference, 20% on living area difference, sold in the same subdivision. You can go half mile, 1 mile, 5 miles. We're going to go sold in the same subdivision, sold in the last 6 months. And we're going to go ahead and click on update criteria. And in the last 6 months, we did have 3 sales, 505, 535, and 515. That gives you an average of $518,300. So they are asking $599,000. Of course, you guys need to see the property itself and see the features of the property and is the property in good conditions and determine what a good offer price would be. So let's go ahead and place an offer for $520,000. I know that's a lot lower than their asking price, but this asking price is a lot higher than what the property should be. All right, this property's been on the market now for 37 days. And did they lower the price? No, that's the original list price. So they have not lowered the price just yet. All right, so that was a quick CMA. Of course, you guys can run CMAs using RPR. And if you don't know, RPR is over here on the right-hand side of IMAP. And RPR is also over here on the listing by clicking on RPR. If you click on RPR, it's also going to tell you an estimated value. And I'm going to basically confirm I'm going to confirm what I should be offering. So you'll see here that you can run a CMA. And I'm going to run a quick CMA on RPR just to double confirm, right? Confirm facts. And then we're going to go ahead and run comps. So find comps. And we're doing single family, active, pending, under contract, and closed. We're going to go ahead and search out 6 months. And we're going to go ahead and put in a minimum of 3 bedrooms, minimum of 2 bathrooms, and we're going to go ahead and select lot size. We want to make sure that we stay within these parameters. Okay. And let's click on search. You're going to see on the map that you have some comps right here. All right. So we have some comps. Select the comps. All right, so we're between 537 and 616. Let's click on update valuation and close. We're going to get a lot higher, 575. All right. So why is there a difference? You have to see what your parameters were on IMAP, right? So 20%, 20%, same subdivision. That's it right there. Same subdivision, 6 months. And then you can work with RPR to try to get a number. All right. So let's just go with an aggressive offer of $520,000. So purchase price. Go back to form simplicity, $520,000. My buyer is Michael Jordan, right? And you're going to put in your buyer's name there. Then you have all of your contact information there. We're going to go ahead and click on Save to a Transaction. Name the transaction the same as the property address. This is a residential transaction and the transaction type is a purchase. All right. So save to a new transaction. Now we have the transaction created inside of Form Simplicity. Now it's time for us to add the purchase contract. All right, so add forms package right here. Add forms package. We're always going to go ahead and select the buyer package. You do not need all these forms, so uncheck these forms. We already have the buyer broker agreement, so we don't need that. We are going to choose the as is residential contract for sale and purchase. That is your offer. Eventually, you will need a homeowners association because this property is inside of an HOA. And if the property is built before 1979, then you will need the lead-based paint disclosure. So one quick check on the MLS tells you this property was built in 1989. So you do not need the lead-based paint disclosure. All right. So right now we're just going to go with the as is contract, and that is our purchase contract. Click on continue. And we now added our as is contract. All right. And here it is. Right there it is. Now I'm going to show you briefly how to prepare an as is contract. We do have classes for the as-is contract that we teach. Also, our title company, Marina Title, also teaches the as-is contract. So those of you that are interested in learning more about this contract, you can attend that class. We're going to go ahead and open up the as-is contract and briefly show you how to prepare it. All right. If you use the as-is contract from our package, it's going to already have most of the fields filled in for you. So here we have the seller's name, we have the buyer's name, we have the property address, we have the legal description. And then right here we have the purchase price of $520,000. Let's say that we're going to come in with $10,000 in deposit. We're going to go ahead and put in here $10,000 in deposit. The $10,000 will be held by our escrow agent, and our escrow agent is through our title company, Marina Title. If your buyer decides to use another title company, you can go ahead and put in the other title company here. All right. And then put in Marina Title's address, put in Marina Title's email address, and then put in Marina Title's phone number. All right. It's all already pre-filled into your contracts. All right. But again, if you're going to use another title company, then go ahead and put in another title company's information. If we are financing, let's say that our client is approved for a conventional financing and they're going to go in with 10% down, then where it says percentage right here, we're going to put in 90% financing. And their balance to close will be $52,000. All right. Wait, the $10,000 didn't record. All right, there you go. So their balance to close will be $42,000. If they're going to do 80% financing, that means that they're going to go with 20% down, then you're going to put in here 80. If this is a cash deal, then you're going to put here zero. All right, you're going to put zero, and the balance to close will be the entire balance after the $10,000. Claudio, you have a question. What's up?
Yes. So just to get a clearer understanding, the $10,000 will be deposit held in escrow by Marina Title.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're
And
when you have the offer signed by both buyer and seller and you have an executed contract, you're gonna send the offer over to Marina Title, and Marina Title will then reach out to your buyer with instructions for them to wire the $10,000 over to them
within 3 days, as
within
stated.
3 days. Right, within 3 days. We do not hold escrow for sales. At Elite Ocean View Realty, we only hold escrow for rentals.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. And if it's not Marina Title, if it's another attorney, same thing. Just send over the paperwork to that attorney and make sure the attorney collects the escrow within 3 days. All right.
Thank you.
Perfect. Time for acceptance. Today's Thursday. Let's say that we're gonna have them accept. You give them until Monday. Give them until Monday to accept the offer. And this needs to be extended, then we can always extend it. Closing date, you can go 30 days, you can go 45 days, or you can write on or before 45 days. So it already says on, so you can go before 45 days. Or you can select a date, right? You can select a date. It's up to you. All right. If your client is completely approved, no conditional, there's no conditions on your approval, and the lender says that we can get all this approved really quick, then you may put in honor before 30 days, or you just select a date from the calendar. All right. Moving on down here to number 8, financing. This is a conventional, so we're gonna go with B. This contract is contingent upon within 30 days. All right, of the effective date loan approval. So a loan must be approved within 30 days after the effective date. And the type of loan is a conventional. If it's FHA, then select FHA. If this is a cash transaction, then you would select letter A. All right. The loan term will be for 30 years, 15 years, whatever the loan term will be. And then an application for financing must be done within 5 days after the effective date. All right. This just gets the ball rolling quicker, and everyone is en route to making this transaction happen. Right. Moving on down here to inspection. Actually, let's move on here to page number. I always forget this page. But this is page number 4. Page number 4, we have already pre-selected here in line 176, Miami-Dade Broward Regional Provisions. This means that the buyer shall designate the closing agent. So we represent the buyer, we're choosing the closing agent. In Miami-Dade and Broward County, buyer chooses the closing agent. If you are purchasing a property outside of Miami-Dade and Broward County, you must check either line 172 or line 174. Line 172 says that the seller shall designate the closing agent, and they're going to also pay for um, the title insurance. And then right here, 174 is that the buyer shall designate the closing agent. But since we are closing a property in Miami-Dade and Broward County, then line 176 is already pre-selected for you. All right, so in page number 5, we have inspection period. So right here, you're gonna put in the inspection period. If you put in 7 days, you must get the inspection done right away because your inspection period is only gonna be 7 days after the effective date. You can put in 10 days, you can put in 15 days. If you leave it blank, it does go to 15. I highly recommend that you put in between 7 and 10 days. Do not put in anything else other than that. If you put 15 days, the seller may not like that. Remember, during an inspection period, the buyer can cancel at any time and receive the deposit back in return, and we don't have a deal anymore. So this is why sellers may not like to see 15 days here. 7 days is pretty much the amount of days that people get the inspection done. All right. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'm not really going to go over a lot more on the as-is contract. Select which disclosures and addendums are going to be included in the offer. And any additional terms that you want to write here, you can write the additional terms and then save it. Make sure that we get your buyers to sign it. and then we will push this offer over to the seller's agent, right? The listing agent, so they can go ahead and review it and perhaps sign it. And now we are under contract. All right. So, guys, once you are under contract, the next step, of course, is that you, as the buyer agent, you need to send all the documentation over to the title company. All right, you need to send all the documentation out to the title company. The title company will then request the escrow deposit to be made, and the escrow deposit will be made. At the same time, you want to make sure that the contract also gets sent to the loan officer, right? Whatever loan officer, whatever lending institution they're using, they need to get started on the application for financing. All right, that's another responsibility. And then you must schedule an inspection right away. So where can we find inspection companies? All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you. We're going to go ahead and open up MiamiRealtors.com. I am going to give you a few inspection company options. All right. So we're going to go ahead and click on affiliates. Click on affiliates at MiamiRealtors.com. And we're going to go here to the affiliate directory. And we're going to come here and we're going to select home inspection and engineering. Any of these companies are reputable and reliable home inspection companies. Now, of course, if you already know a home inspection company, property inspection company that you want to use, that's fine. If your buyer already has an inspector they want to use, that's fine. Perhaps they know someone that's going to give them a good deal on an inspection, then they can use that inspection company. All right, but these are some very reputable inspection companies. I've used Allied, I've used TrueView, I've used Max Home Inspections, all great. All right. Inspections are paid by the buyer. The buyer pays for the inspection out of pocket. An inspection usually takes between 1 and 2 hours, and you can schedule the inspection right away and alert the seller that the inspection has been scheduled for that date and make sure that the property is available with running water and running electricity. All right. So once the inspection is done, then obviously there's an inspection report that will be delivered. And the buyer is going to look at the inspection report. And if there's any negotiations of credits to be done, they're going to take the opportunity to ask the seller for credits. So if you're representing the buyer and you receive an inspection report and it says that the electrical panel needs to be replaced, right? You're going to negotiate with the seller. Hey, look, based on the inspection report, the electrical panel needs to be replaced. And the recommendation is that it's going to cost $2,000. So you want to ask for $2,000 credit at closing. And you guys can always ask for credits by adding to your transaction an addendum. So you're gonna come over here and you're gonna open up the packages, go to the buyer package, remove all of these, only select the addendum, right? Addendum to contract right here. And let's say that after the inspection, your buyer wants to move forward with the transaction, but they want to ask for a credit. So how do you ask for a credit? First and foremost, you're going to communicate with the listing agent and you guys are going to negotiate all of that, right? And then you're going to prepare an addendum, right? You're going to come here, you're going to open up addendum to contracts. This is going to be addendum number one. Let's pretend that this contract was accepted yesterday, right? Not like yesterday, a week ago. Let's pretend that it was accepted a week ago. So on the 14th of August, right? So contract was accepted, effective date, August 14th. Here you have the seller and buyer, the address of the property. And then right here, you are going to write that the seller and buyer agree that the seller is going to provide, say, $3,000 credit towards closing. All right. So right here, we're just going to write seller to contribute $3,000 to buyer at closing. Guys, there's no length. I mean, there is language that you can write, like that you can research and write how to write an addendum, but seller to contribute $3,000 to buyer at closing is understandable. As long as you guys come over here and then just finish it off like this. All other terms and conditions of this contract remain the same. All right, finish it off. I like to do this one, and then I like to do this two. All right, and then if there's any other terms you want to add to the addendum, go ahead and add it, and then save it. You need your buyer to sign this. You need the seller to sign it. You're gonna send this addendum over to the title company, right? You're gonna send this addendum over to the title company because the title company needs to know that the seller is going to give an additional $3,000 to the buyer at closing. Basically, that means that your buyer is going to have a credit at closing of $3,000. Claudio, you have a question?
Yes. So let's say we send this to the title company and they will send it to the seller, or we will send it to the title company and the seller.
No, no, we are going to get both the buyer and seller to sign it.
Oh, okay, okay.
So now the
Understood.
seller has a copy and you have a copy.
Okay.
But since you represent the buyer, you need to make sure that this gets to the title company, in this case to Marina Title. So when we get ready for closing, they know to deduct $3,000 from the seller's proceeds and credit it to the buyer.
Okay, so I have the seller buyer signed and for the record, to the title company.
Correct. Correct. All right. All right, guys. So after inspection is done, the inspection period is way past, and we are moving on to a to appraisal. Then, if there is an appraisal going to happen, usually the lender is going to order an appraisal. They're going to tell you when the appraisal is going to happen, and we need to make sure the property is available for the appraiser to go in and do their investigation and their report. All right. So after the appraisal is in, if the price is good, then the lender can continue to work towards clear to close. In the meantime, a lot of things in the background are happening, right? The title company is ordering a land survey, right? So you got to make sure, and the title company will tell you, survey has been ordered, survey has been performed, and the survey will be then sent over to the buyer and seller, right? Um, so the title company will take care of the survey. The title company is going to provide a title commitment. The title company is also going to run a lien search and a title search on the property. Make sure it's a clean title. If there's something wrong with the title, then it must be resolved beforehand, before the closing. That's part of the contract. Part of the contract says that all open liens or anything that's wrong with the title must be resolved before the transfer of the title. All right. So when you're representing the buyer, you are going to deliver your buyer a clean title. You don't want any hangups on that title. Okay. So the title company is going to go ahead and make sure that all of this is clean. If it's not, then the seller needs to resolve their issues. And of course, you may have to extend the closing date or whatnot. Okay. If for whatever reason after the appraisal comes in, the price is lower than the purchase price, and you have an appraisal contingency, usually FHA contracts have an appraisal contingency, but if you're doing conventional and you did do a contingency on the appraisal, then a price needs to be negotiated, a credit, or in worst case scenario, the deal falls through because it's not appraised. So, for example, if we were purchasing this property right now at $520,000 and the appraisal comes in at 480, right? Since this is a conventional loan, it's not FHA, it's a conventional loan, then the buyer needs to figure out if they're going to put in the extra 40,000 out of pocket, or is the seller going to come down on their price, or is this deal dead? right? So let's just pretend the deal's not dead. We're good. It's all going through, right? The lenders are working towards clear to close. The lender is going to send the buyer their closing disclosures, and they're going to make sure that everything is correct. The title company is going to send your buyer a the Alta or the preliminary closing statement where you are going to review. You are going to review the closing statement. Your buyer is going to review the closing statement, make sure all the numbers are correct. But before that, guys, there's so many different things that I kind of forget. But before that, your buyer also needs to obtain insurance. So your buyer needs to contact a home insurance company, and let's just call it State Farm for now. But your client is going to contact State Farm. They're going to get a quote on insuring the property. If they agree, then they're going to enter into contract with State Farm to insure the property. The insurance company will then send a binder, which is basically a contract and the coverage on the home. They're going to send it over to the lender. The lender must see the binder and must see that the buyer has already contracted an insurance company to insure the property before they can give clear to close. All right. So I kind of jumped the gun a little bit there. Before closing disclosures comes the insurance. All right. So insurance must be obtained. Also, if you are buying inside of an HOA, obviously, if there's an HOA approval process, we need an HOA approval before we can close. All right. So we got to make sure that the buyer has filled out the HOA application, has interviewed with the HOA, and has an approval from the HOA to proceed with closing. So now let's say everything is already met. Now the bank is going to give clear to close, and then the title company is going to give clear to close. Right? So we have two clear to close. That means we're ready to go. All right. Usually if the title company is representing both the seller and the buyer, it can happen all in one place. But if the seller has their own title representation, they are going to sign the paperwork at their own title company's office, and then your buyer is going to sign the closing documents at Marina Title. All right. If both seller and buyer are using Marina Title, both seller and buyer will sign at Marina Title. Usually at separate times. We never really get everyone to meet at the same time at the title company. Usually the seller is going to sign their documents first. The buyer then will sign the documents, and we have a closed deal. All right. Make sure that we deliver to Marina Title how we want to get paid. So our compensation will be either wired to us, it could be wired to our operating account. You can contact our office for wiring instructions, or Marina Title or any other title company can overnight the compensation check to us. Or in some instances, they'll hand deliver the check to you, and then you can bring it to our office. They are going to give you the closing statement, which I have a class on the closing process. So they're going to give you a closing statement. You're going to bring us that closing statement, which is known as the ULTA. It's also known as the final closing statement, and it's going to show, you know, everything. It's going to show the credits to the buyer. It's going to show the debits. Sorry, the debits to the buyer, the credits to the seller, and then of course the compensation to each brokerage that was involved. All right. So you need to hand deliver that to us or email it to us. Remember our transaction coordinator. You can also copy me. We'll review it, we'll approve it, and we'll approve you for payment. All right. Any questions on the process? Working with buyers. Obviously, guys, there's going to be a lot of different questions you may have during the process, and that's fine. You can always call me. You can call our broker Tail. We'd be more than happy to guide you through it. We've done this many, many times over, and we'll guide you through it. I mean, it seems like a lot at first, but it's really just one day at a time, step by step, and it all gets done. I know as a real estate professional, I like to stay on top of things. So I'm always going to be in contact with the lender. I'm always going to be in contact with the title company when I'm representing the buyer. And I'm always going to keep the seller agent posted on any updates. All right, I'm going to keep them posted on any updates. All right, guys. Any questions? Any questions in what we just went over? All right. No questions. All right, perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much then for joining our class today on working with buyers. I kind of went over some of the steps that we take as agents when we're working with buyers. Of course, like I said, there may be other scenarios, and when they do arise, if you don't have any doubts, please contact us. All right, folks. All right, guys, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you in our next training.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Have a good day.
Bye
Have a
now.
nice
Thank you.